Power is not given, it is taken. The elite do not open their doors to everyone. They protect their secrets, their influence, and their networks like a fortress. Yet, even these walls have cracks, and even the most exclusive circles can be infiltrated. If you know the rules, they refuse to teach. Today, I will reveal Machiavelli's closed circle laws, strategies, used by the cunning to enter the inner sanctums of power. Listen carefully, because in the world of influence, knowing how to approach the elite can make the difference between being overlooked and becoming unstoppable. When attempting to enter elite circles, one of the most crucial lessons comes from understanding how value and ambition are perceived. Machiavelli often emphasized that those in power are wary of threats, and ambition can be interpreted as a threat. Therefore, if you approach an elite group announcing your desire for influence or recognition, you are likely to be met with suspicion or resistance. Instead, the path to acceptance begins with demonstrating usefulness. The key is to show that you can solve problems, provide resources, or offer insight that the group currently lacks. This is not about flattery or pretending to be something you are not. It is about identifying gaps, needs, or inefficiencies within the circle and positioning yourself as the person who can fill them. The elite, by nature, guard their privileges closely, and they are most receptive to those who make their lives easier, their goals more attainable, or their challenges less daunting. To enter their world, you must first become an asset before you reveal any personal ambition. Usefulness can take many forms. It might be specialized knowledge that is rare and valued, such as insight into a market, political foresight, or strategic thinking that others lack. It could be connections, access to information, or the ability to execute tasks with a precision that others in the group cannot match. The moment you provide tangible value, you begin to shift your perception from outsider to essential participant. Machiavelli recognized that people in power are protective of their positions and cautious of outsiders. They welcome those who can advance their interests because in the world of influence, usefulness often outweighs loyalty or friendship. Being useful creates a subtle obligation. When someone benefits from your skills or knowledge, they feel invested in keeping you close, in observing your contributions, and in considering you for further opportunities. It is equally important to remain humble and strategic in presenting your usefulness. If your assistance is too overt, or if it comes with demands or expectations, it can be interpreted as self-serving ambition, which triggers resistance. True influence is gained by quietly providing solutions and making your presence felt without drawing attention to your desire for advancement. Those who enter elite circles too aggressively or declare their intentions to climb the ranks often encounter obstacles because power is highly sensitive to perceived threats. The elite watch carefully for anyone whose ambitions could disrupt the balance or challenge established hierarchies. By demonstrating that your initial purpose is to be useful, you reduce the perception of threat while slowly embedding yourself within the network. Another aspect of usefulness is the timing of contributions. Machiavelli often suggested that understanding the needs and priorities of those in power is as important as the value you offer. A well-timed solution, a critical insight when others are struggling, or the right intervention at a decisive moment can dramatically increase your standing. This requires careful observation and patience. You must learn to read the environment, assess the needs, and act when your value will have maximum impact. Entering elite circles is not about instant gratification. It is about long-term strategy. Each small contribution accumulates, building trust, recognition, and a reputation for reliability and competence. Over time, your usefulness becomes your passport into their world, opening doors that would otherwise remain closed. Machiavelli would stress that those who are impatient or who seek immediate recognition often fail because they focus on ambition rather than utility. Ambition, when untethered from usefulness, appears as selfishness or opportunism. In contrast, consistent demonstration of value creates a foundation of influence. You are no longer an outsider. You are someone the group depends on, even if subtly, to achieve their objectives. The transition from being merely helpful to being indispensable is gradual and requires constant awareness of how your actions are perceived. But the first step always begins with prioritizing usefulness above ambition, ensuring that when the time comes to reveal your own goals, the elite are already invested in your presence. When attempting to infiltrate elite circles, the principle of blending in before standing out is one of the most subtle yet powerful strategies one can employ. Machiavelli understood that visibility without preparation can be dangerous. The elite are highly sensitive to outsiders who draw attention too quickly, especially if their presence threatens the established hierarchy. To gain access, one must first become almost invisible, observing, learning, and adapting to the norms, behaviors, and expectations of the group. This does not mean complete subservience or loss of identity, but a strategic suppression of traits or ambitions that might trigger suspicion. By aligning your outward demeanor with the culture of the elite, you create a sense of familiarity and comfort, which reduces resistance and allows your presence to be tolerated, even welcomed. The key is to be present, without challenging, to exist without threatening, and to mirror the subtleties of the environment so that your integration appears natural rather than forced. Observation is the first step in blending in. Understanding the dynamics of the group, their language, priorities, hierarchy, and rituals is essential. Every circle has subtle codes, unspoken rules, and behavioral cues that outsiders rarely notice. Machiavelli would advise keen attention to these details: how conversations flow, who wields influence, who is trusted, and how decisions are made. By assimilating these observations into your behavior, you reduce the risk of committing social mistakes that could mark you as an outsider. Blending in requires patience and a willingness to temporarily suppress personal preferences or immediate displays of skill or knowledge. The elite are wary of people who appear too eager, too different, or too ambitious. By carefully studying and mimicking their style, you gradually gain acceptance, laying the groundwork for deeper infiltration. At the same time, blending in is not about erasing all individuality. It is a strategic camouflage, a way to navigate the inner circles without triggering defensive instincts. Machiavelli emphasizes that timing is everything. Once you are accepted and your presence is normalized, you gain the freedom to reveal your capabilities, insights, or ambitions in a way that will be recognized and valued rather than rejected. The moment you choose to stand out should be calculated. It must coincide with a situation where your contribution is undeniable, your skill is needed, or your insight provides an advantage to the group. Premature visibility can provoke envy, resistance, or exclusion, but strategic timing transforms your emergence into an asset rather than a threat. Blending in also involves mastering the subtle art of emotional and social intelligence. Machiavelli recognized that the elite often test newcomers not through formal procedures, but through social interactions, loyalty trials, and informal assessments. By remaining composed, adaptive, and socially attuned, you navigate these tests successfully. You listen more than you speak, contribute without dominating, and adopt the communication patterns of the group. Even small actions like matching gestures, speech cadence, or dress codes signal that you belong and understand their culture. These subtle cues are often more powerful than overt displays of competence because they build trust and reduce perceived risk. Ultimately, the goal of blending in is not invisibility for its own sake, but preparation for influence. By first becoming a part of the background, you gain access to the inner workings of the circle, the alliances, rivalries, and unspoken rules that govern behavior. Machiavelli would stress that understanding these dynamics is essential before attempting to leverage your talents or pursue personal objectives. Once you have observed, adapted, and internalized the patterns of the elite, your eventual emergence as a standout figure carries far greater impact. You are no longer an outsider. You are a participant, a familiar presence, and a calculated contributor whose visibility commands attention without provoking resistance, allowing influence to grow naturally and effectively. Infiltrating elite circles requires a subtle understanding of relationships. And one of Machiavelli's most important lessons is that direct approaches often fail where strategic alliances succeed. The elite do not hand out access to outsiders casually. Doors are opened through connections, introductions, and carefully cultivated relationships. Attempting to approach power head-on can trigger defensiveness, suspicion, or outright rejection. Machiavelli recognized that influence flows through networks, and the clever aspirant moves indirectly, building leverage through people who are already slightly above their current position. These allies act as intermediaries, smoothing the path into circles that would otherwise be closed, and their endorsement provides credibility that no self-proclaimed talent or ambition can match. By focusing on alliances instead of direct confrontation, you insert yourself into the existing hierarchy without threatening it, allowing entry to be perceived as a natural progression rather than an intrusion. Strategic alliances begin with observation and careful selection. Not everyone in proximity to power has the ability to influence or introduce newcomers effectively. Machiavelli emphasizes discernment. Identify individuals who have some influence but are not themselves the ultimate gatekeepers. These are people who can provide small yet meaningful opportunities, who are receptive to collaboration, and who see a benefit in your presence. By offering value, insight, or support to these intermediaries, you create a sense of mutual benefit. They begin to perceive you as useful, trustworthy, and aligned with their interests. In this way, your advancement is not a product of audacity alone, but of careful investment in relationships that function as stepping stones. The process requires patience and subtlety. Machiavelli would caution against rushing to the top of the hierarchy or expecting immediate recognition from the most powerful members of a circle. Attempting to bypass intermediaries can trigger resistance or outright exclusion, as elites are protective of their influence and wary of outsiders who ignore protocol. By contrast, leveraging strategic allies provides a buffer and a channel through which your skills, knowledge, and value can be introduced safely. Each ally acts as both a mentor and a sponsor, opening small doors and providing guidance on navigating the unspoken rules that govern the elite's behavior. The relationships must be nurtured carefully, offering assistance or insight without overstepping boundaries or revealing all ambitions too soon. Another critical aspect is the perception of reciprocity. Machiavelli understood that human nature is deeply influenced by obligations and favors. When you support someone slightly above you in the hierarchy, they often feel a subtle obligation to return the favor. By positioning yourself as a beneficial ally, you set in motion a chain of support that can eventually reach the inner sanctum of power. However, this must be executed with precision. Too little contribution fails to make an impression, while over-contribution can create dependency or appear manipulative. The ideal approach is consistent, measured support that highlights your competence, loyalty, and discretion, earning trust without arousing suspicion. The strength of this approach lies in the network effect. Once an ally introduces you or vouches for your abilities, other members of the circle begin to see you as legitimate, reducing the perception of threat. Machiavelli often observed that reputation is cumulative and relational. Entry into a close group is rarely the result of a single action, but of a sequence of well-placed connections, endorsements, and demonstrated value. By using strategic allies, you benefit from their credibility and reduce the personal risk of rejection, positioning yourself in a way that seems organic and unforced. Over time, these relationships provide not only access, but insight into the inner workings of the circle, allowing you to navigate influence, alliances, and rivalries with greater sophistication. Ultimately, the art of using strategic allies is not about manipulation for its own sake, but about understanding the pathways to power that exist within social hierarchies. Machiavelli emphasizes that influence is rarely achieved in isolation. It flows through intermediaries and is shaped by networks. By carefully cultivating alliances with those just above your current standing, you gain both legitimacy and insight, making the transition into elite circles both possible and sustainable. Every introduction, every endorsement, and every shared task becomes a building block, slowly constructing a position from which you can operate effectively and ultimately be seen not as an outsider, but as an integral member of the circle. Infiltrating elite circles requires more than skill, connections, or timing. It demands mastery over perception, and Machiavelli stresses the power of controlled mystery. Those who occupy positions of influence are acutely aware that transparency can be dangerous, both for themselves and for those around them. In elite environments, revealing too much too soon often leads to mistrust, as motives, intentions, and ambitions are constantly scrutinized. Machiavelli recognized that people in power are wary of outsiders who claim to be fully known because knowledge reduces leverage. To navigate these circles successfully, one must cultivate a degree of deliberate obscurity, keeping key motives, plans, and thoughts hidden until the precise moment when revealing them provides maximum advantage. Controlled mystery is not deception for its own sake. It is a strategic withholding that maintains curiosity, influence, and an edge over others who underestimate or misinterpret your potential. The first step in mastering mystery is understanding what to reveal and what to conceal. Machiavelli would advise that you share just enough to demonstrate competence, reliability, and alignment with the circle's interests, but never so much that your full capacity or ambitions are transparent. By revealing partial truths, you provide reassurance without creating vulnerability. People in elite circles are drawn to individuals who appear useful yet enigmatic, because the unknown naturally intrigues them. When they cannot fully gauge your motives, they remain attentive, cautious, and crucially, interested. The tension between visibility and concealment allows you to move through the group without triggering suspicion, creating a space where influence can grow quietly and strategically. Controlled mystery also involves timing and context. Machiavelli emphasizes that revelation is most powerful when it is calculated to occur at the right moment. Sharing insights, revealing abilities, or demonstrating loyalty at a critical juncture amplifies their impact, whereas uncalculated disclosure can provoke envy, resistance, or exclusion. By carefully choosing when and how much to reveal, you maintain an aura of intrigue that increases your perceived value. This approach requires acute awareness of the social and political dynamics within the elite circle, including the personalities of key members, their priorities, and the unspoken rules that govern interactions. Each revelation must be intentional, each silence deliberate, contributing to a perception of depth, competence, and unpredictability that is respected and sometimes even feared. Maintaining mystery also relies on discretion in communication and action. Machiavelli would note that the most powerful figures watch not only what is said, but also what is unsaid. The subtleties of body language, tone, and behavior carry immense weight in elite settings. By controlling these signals, you guide perception without overt manipulation. Avoid over-explaining, oversharing, or justifying your actions unnecessarily. Instead, allow your results, gestures, and occasional insights to speak for themselves. Mystery is reinforced when others must interpret your actions rather than being told what they mean. This compels attention and curiosity, positioning you as someone whose presence carries significance beyond what is immediately visible. Another dimension of controlled mystery is the strategic use of selective alliances and confidants. Sharing limited, precise information with carefully chosen individuals can amplify your influence while minimizing risk. Machiavelli recognized that those in power often rely on intermediaries to navigate complexity. By positioning yourself as someone whose information or insight is both valuable and partially concealed, you establish indispensability while maintaining leverage. Those who cannot fully decipher your intentions are compelled to engage with you repeatedly, creating opportunities for influence and positioning without exposing yourself to unnecessary vulnerability. Ultimately, controlled mystery is the art of balancing presence and concealment. It allows you to navigate elite circles safely while gradually building influence. Machiavelli teaches that the unknown commands attention, inspires respect, and preserves strategic flexibility. By mastering what to reveal, when to reveal it, and to whom, you create a persona that intrigues, engages, and positions you as indispensable. In elite networks, those who are fully known are easily contained. Those who remain partly unknown hold power, influence, and the ability to shape outcomes. Mystery is not a shield, but a tool, a calculated strategy to ensure that your ascent is guided not by brute ambition, but by the perception of depth, competence, and enigma that others cannot ignore. Infiltrating elite circles requires not only observation and subtlety, but also a deep understanding of rules, both spoken and unspoken, and Machiavelli emphasizes the importance of mastering them before attempting to bend or break them. Every exclusive group operates under its own set of codes, traditions, and protocols, many of which are never written but are rigidly enforced. The elite maintain these rules to protect their influence, preserve hierarchy, and control access. To navigate such circles successfully, one must first learn these rules thoroughly. Knowledge of the system provides both safety and leverage. Machiavelli understood that ignorance is dangerous in the world of power. A single misstep, a misjudged behavior, or a breach of protocol can lead to exclusion or hostility. By carefully observing, listening, and internalizing the norms of the elite, you prepare yourself to act effectively when opportunities arise. Understanding the rules allows you to operate within them when necessary, demonstrating loyalty and respect, while also knowing where and rules can be bent to your advantage. The mastery of these laws involves careful study and discretion. Machiavelli would argue that an aspirant must first blend in completely, appearing to respect the established hierarchy and observe its conventions meticulously. This period of compliance is crucial because it builds trust and reduces suspicion. Once trust is established, however, those who understand the rules gain the ability to manipulate them subtly, creating opportunities that others cannot see or exploit. The elite often judge competence not merely by skill, but by the ability to navigate the social and political terrain effectively. Demonstrating knowledge of these unspoken rules signals intelligence, strategic awareness, and the capacity to operate without destabilizing the circle. In essence, rule mastery is a form of camouflage, allowing you to gain influence without provoking resistance or revealing ambition prematurely. Knowing when to bend the rules is as important as understanding them. Machiavelli recognized that rules are not immutable. They are tools used by those in power to maintain control. The clever aspirant observes which rules are flexible and which are rigidly enforced. By strategically breaking minor norms while adhering to major ones, you can carve space for innovation, display initiative, and assert subtle influence. However, timing and discretion are critical. Rule-breaking must appear beneficial or harmless to the circle. If it seems self-serving, reckless, or disrespectful, it will provoke rejection. The elite respond to subtle demonstrations of audacity that enhance collective goals, not to overt challenges that appear threatening. Machiavelli's insight is that the elite respect cunning, calculated actions more than blind obedience, but only when the action is grounded in understanding of the system. Another element is the ability to anticipate consequences. Mastery of rules includes understanding how deviations are perceived and the ripple effects they may create. Machiavelli often emphasized foresight as a key attribute of influence. By predicting reactions and adjusting behavior accordingly, an aspirant maintains control over both perception and outcomes. Even minor actions can have outsized effects in tightly controlled elite circles, where reputation and trust are fragile commodities. Strategic breaches of rules must therefore be executed with precision, ensuring that the outcome strengthens your position rather than exposing you to risk. In this way, rule mastery becomes both a defensive and offensive strategy, providing protection while creating pathways for advancement. Machiavelli also highlights that long-term influence comes from the ability to integrate rule compliance with selective innovation. Those who succeed within elite circles do not merely follow the rules. They subtly redefine them over time, creating space for new methods, ideas, and influence. This requires patience, observation, and a deep understanding of both the formal and informal structures that govern behavior. By first learning the rules, demonstrating respect for them, and then bending them judiciously, you signal intelligence, adaptability, and strategic vision. This combination ensures that your presence is not only tolerated but valued, positioning you as someone capable of navigating complex environments where others fail. Ultimately, mastering the rules before breaking them is a calculated strategy for gaining influence without triggering resistance. Machiavelli teaches that knowledge of the system provides both safety and opportunity. Those who ignore or misunderstand the rules risk exposure and exclusion, while those who respect, internalize, and selectively bend them gain both trust and leverage. In elite circles, the ability to operate within boundaries while subtly redefining them is the mark of true power, allowing an aspirant not only to enter the circle but to rise within it, guided by skill, observation, and strategic audacity. Infiltrating elite circles is only the beginning. To maintain influence and secure a lasting position, one must become indispensable. And Machiavelli emphasizes that true power comes from utility rather than charm or loyalty alone. The elite respect those whose presence solves problems, provides insight, or offers advantages that cannot be easily replaced. Being irreplaceable does not mean monopolizing attention or demanding recognition. It means positioning yourself as someone whose absence would create a tangible void, whose skills, knowledge, or connections are uniquely valuable to the group. Machiavelli understood that in the world of influence, indispensability is the ultimate currency because those who are essential are protected, consulted, and entrusted with opportunities that outsiders or even peers cannot access. The focus, therefore, is not merely on gaining entry but on establishing a role that cannot be ignored, dismissed, or substituted. Becoming indispensable requires careful observation and strategic action. Machiavelli would advise that you identify the critical needs, weaknesses, and priorities of the elite circle and determine where your abilities can have the greatest impact. This may involve solving persistent problems, providing rare information, or facilitating connections that others cannot. The key is to operate in areas where your contribution is both visible and unique, so that your value is recognized not through self-promotion, but through tangible results. This approach ensures that your presence is perceived as necessary rather than optional, and that the group begins to rely on your expertise or capabilities as part of their ongoing operations. Utility builds influence organically, because those who benefit from it naturally advocate for your continued inclusion and trust. Machiavelli emphasizes that perception is as important as actual utility. The elite must recognize that you are not only capable but also uniquely positioned to address certain challenges. Subtlety is essential. Overt displays of indispensability can provoke envy or fear. Instead, influence grows quietly through consistent, reliable contributions that gradually make your presence synonymous with success or stability within the circle. You create situations where your skills or insights are required, and the elite come to associate outcomes directly with your involvement. By linking your presence to tangible benefits, you cultivate a form of security that is difficult to challenge, because removing you would cause inconvenience, disruption, or loss. Another element of becoming indispensable is adaptability. Machiavelli would argue that elite circles are dynamic, and roles that are valuable today may be irrelevant tomorrow. To maintain your position, you must anticipate shifts in priorities, power, and challenges, and continuously align your contributions with emerging needs. This requires acute observation, foresight, and the ability to act decisively when circumstances change. The individual who can not only meet current demands but also predict and prepare for future challenges demonstrates foresight, strategic thinking, and a level of influence that goes beyond simple utility. Over time, this adaptability strengthens your reputation, deepens trust, and ensures that your indispensability is sustainable rather than temporary. Equally important is the cultivation of relationships that reinforce your utility. Machiavelli recognized that influence is relational. Those who depend on you are more likely to advocate for you, shield you from criticism, and provide additional opportunities. By fostering a network of individuals who recognize and benefit from your contributions, you create a system in which your presence is supported and reinforced. This network magnifies the perception of your indispensability, as your absence would not only remove your skills, but also disrupt the broader web of benefits that you facilitate. Ultimately, becoming indispensable is the culmination of strategic observation, careful action, and continuous alignment with the needs of the elite. Power is never given freely, and the gates of influence remain closed to those who fail to understand the rules, the timing, and the subtle currents of elite circles. To enter, you must first be useful, blend seamlessly, cultivate strategic allies, maintain an air of mystery, master the laws, and ultimately become indispensable. These are not shortcuts or acts of chance. They are deliberate, calculated strategies rooted in observation, patience, and intelligence. Remember, the elite do not welcome ambition in its raw form. They reward those who make themselves necessary, whose presence enhances their power rather than threatens it. By following these principles, you do not merely enter their world. You position yourself to survive, thrive, and shape outcomes from within, turning access into influence and influence into enduring authority.